Hello and very welcome. My name is Fiona Cron and I am the Chief Marketing Officer for IIBN. I'm delighted to welcome you all to today's event on PR and branding for SMEs with Ellen Gunning. Welcome to all the new members today and great to have you with us, and also to all the familiar faces, great to see and thank you so much for your continuous support. IIBN connects Irish entrepreneurs and business professionals globally with chapters in London, New York, Dublin, Munster and presence in Central and Eastern Europe. We have members joining us today from all over the UK, most counties in Ireland, Spain, Portugal, New York, and also Moscow and Budapest. And you're very welcome. Great to have you all with us, and if you'd like more information on IIBN, you can just drop myself an email at fiona@iibn.com or get in touch with Alba, also at alba@iibn.com. And we'd be very happy to help you in any way we possibly can. So we'd like to thank our sponsors hugely for all your continuous support. Grant Thornton, Beecham's, Dorsey and Whitney, Ovation Incentives, Lonsdale Capital Partners, KMCO Group, Spark Crowdfunding, Hannon Travel, Ebury, Channel Site, CPL and World Trade Center. You've been very good to support us and we couldn't do this without you, so thank you so much. Now, Ellen is a PR and branding expert and founder and director of Irish Academy of Public Relations and director at the PR Training Academy. And today, Ellen is going to share with us all her thoughts on what we should be doing as a business or as an individual to promote our brand and our message. Ellen, we're all looking forward to this, so I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks a million, Fiona. Hello and good afternoon. I hope that by the time we've actually completed this webinar, you will be as enthusiastic about communicating with all of your publics as I am on your behalf. Very briefly about me to begin. I'm Ellen Gunning, as Fiona said. My business is the PR Training Academy, and basically what we do is we provide laser-focused, bite-sized communications courses. If you're operating in any business today, you know how important communications is, you know how fast communications moves. So we teach you things like how to shoot video footage with your smartphone, how to write a really good feature article, how to negotiate sponsorship, how to train your voice for radio, how to take really good photographs, the kind of things that you need to know in order to communicate. My background is that I've been over 30 years in public relations. I began in voluntary PR, so voluntary organisations that I was involved with, I would always put my hand up and say, yes, I'll do the PR, and really, really enjoyed it. It became a complete addiction in my life, I must admit. I've worked on the consultancy side of the house for about 20 years, handling national and international clients, really enjoy that. And for the last I'm over 30 years in PR, I'd say at this stage. For the last 15 years or so, I've been designing courses and offering training throughout the country and throughout the world recently. I've written a book on public relations, which is actually taught, it's an academic text and is taught on university campuses throughout the world. And I comment on anything and everything through a PR prism on television and radio. So I suppose the only thing that you don't know about me, but you've probably suspected by now, is that I'm a complete communications geek. I just really enjoy comms. So today I want to look at public relations and branding for SMEs. How important is it? Let me begin with the first slide, if I can, Fiona, and talk about what public relations actually is, because I think everybody thinks they know what it is, but I'm not at all convinced that they really know. The definition of public relations is that PR is defined as the deliberate, planned and sustained effort to establish and maintain mutual understanding between an organisation and its publics. Now, it's a shocking, wordy definition, but it's really very good. It's deliberate, planned and sustained. PR is communications at its simplest, and communications is both speaking and listening. But if you're dealing with staff, you're dealing with financial media, you're dealing with media generally, you're dealing with customers, then your communication needs to be deliberate. You need to know exactly what you're doing, very much in the same way that you choose among friends. You would rank, these people I need to send a Christmas card to once a year, or these people I need to meet every summer, and others I absolutely must talk to every week or every day or every month because my life isn't right without it. You deliberately map out how often you will communicate with the people who are important to you. You plan it and you sustain it, and that's really important. If you think about communications, and again, if you think of it as just you and a friend, If you talk to a friend and you talk one way and you meet the friend and the friend meets you every month and says, wait till I tell you, this amazing thing has happened. Here's my month, blah, 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 blah. And they finish by saying, must catch up on your news next month, goodbye, and they disappear. And the next month they do it, and the next month they do it. You stop being interested in them at all because they've no interest in you. It's a one-way flow. It's me, 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 me. And it's nothing about tell me about your life. So it must be both speaking and listening. It's deliberate and planned and sustained, because if you, again, like a friendship, if you meet somebody regularly, if you begin to communicate with people now, or you began to communicate with people 6 weeks ago and said, COVID is really important, you are really important to us, and this COVID-19 has really taken over the world, and we want to help in any way we can. We want to theoretically wrap our arms around you. And you communicate very well and very effectively. And then you stop. We come out of COVID and you think, that's fine, I've done that bit, I can now get back to selling. So you stop communicating with people and you start pushing a sales message. And then, let's hope it doesn't happen, we come back into a phase 2 of the virus. And you suddenly kick in again with, oh, we really are worried about you, we're very concerned, you're very important to us. You would reasonably expect that all of your customers would say, no, we're not. So you stopped talking to me. As soon as it came back to normal sales, you didn't want to know anything about me at all. The communication wasn't sustained. You're trying to maintain mutual understanding. Most people have this, I think it's changing, but it's not changing fast enough. They have this impression of public relations, that what we're trying to do is create a silk purse out of a seller's ear, that we will sell you anything. We polish something brightly on the outside and say, here's a really nice shiny bauble, but you don't really know. It's not true, it's not accurate. And it's like anything in life. If you try to spoof somebody about who you are or what you do, you'll get found out. Once you get found out, they don't trust you. It doesn't make sense. What you're trying to do is create an accurate impression of who you are. So you don't have to be the biggest in the country. You don't have to be the best, but you can be almost the best. You can be aspiring to be the best company that produces whatever it is that you produce. You can be a very small farmer, but your produce is grown with love and care, and you guarantee that every piece of produce that you sell at a farmer's market is free of any kind of toxins, any kind of growth hormones. And this is your specialization. It doesn't matter that you're small. It doesn't matter that you're a little bit more expensive. I know who you are. I know where you're coming from. I understand it. An awful lot of small businesses will try to create a facade. So they'll create a website, and a website is very often what people come to first and how they first get to know you. But they'll create a website where the language is quite clever, and it speaks about, if you look at people where there's 1 or 2 people working in an organization, it screams out at you that there are 1 or 2 people there. And look at a website that says, our team does this. In connection with my colleagues, I do Y. And you find yourself reading the website saying, what colleagues? What team? I don't get this at all. It doesn't matter that you're small. Be honest about it. We actually dealt with, it was an advertising guy quite a number of years ago, and his address was an unusual address, and we had dealt with another company in that same building. And when I was speaking to him, I said to him, whereabouts in the building are you, by the way? Because it was a rather unique building. And he said, we're on the 4th floor. And I said, oh, you share the floor with X. And he said, no, we have the floor to ourselves. So when I was talking to my colleague afterwards, I said to him, this guy said that he's on the 4th floor. Have you moved? And he said, no, he was here. We sublet an office to him, but times are tough and he's now working from home. We didn't deal with him. I have no problem with anybody working from home. I have a problem with the fact that he tried to convince me that he was this enormous company that he actually wasn't. So he didn't gain my trust. So a mutual understanding, if people understand who you are and where you come from, then it's much easier to do business with them. Let me flash on to the next slide if I can, and look at the difference between advertising, marketing, and public relations. Those who don't understand public relations well believe that it is a free version of advertising, and it's not. The purpose of advertising is to sell. So you buy space, you craft the message that you're going to put into it. You make it the most persuasive message that you can. So it's buy 2 for the price of 1, or buy now on a special offer which expires at the end of July, or buy our product because we do 1, 2, 3, 4. And you advertise, you advertise to a specific audience, and then you evaluate how successful you've been on the basis of how much product was sold. It's really simple. I spent 5,000 on advertising. I sold 3,000 worth of product. This did not work for me. I sold 50,000 worth of product. Hey, this was fantastic. We must advertise again. It's the only way that you evaluate it. But the objective with advertising is to sell. With marketing, it's all about positioning your product. So are you the kind of product that sells in upmarket stores, or that sells in chemist shops, or do you sell on supermarket shelves? Marketing positions you as product, price, place, promotion. It's saying this is where we sit, this is where we fit, and the marketing, all of the marketing messages will target that very fast throughput of people, of products selling on a supermarket shelf, or that very exclusive I pay more. Look at L'Oreal and the way that they market and advertise, because I'm worth it. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. The price doesn't matter. Why are you buying this product? Because I'm worth it. Go, get with the plot. Public relations, on the other hand, tells you the story. It tells you the story about who the company is and why they exist at all. What is their backstory? Who are they? What do they stand for? What kind of personality have they got? Companies have personalities. If you think of, and industries have personalities, if you think of something like the tech industry, you instantly think in your head, I would imagine, mostly male, probably no older than 35. And the images of tech geeks, it's people who sit and are fascinated by, I can solve this, I can create a new algorithm, I can do something or other. With the greatest respect to tech people, it's the vision of who they are. If you think of accountants, you think of people who get really excited because they found 2 cents that was missing. And you think, God, there must be more to life than that. But it's your instant impression of accountants. If you think of public relations people, what do you think of? Probably female, probably young, blonde, good looking, and a bit ditzy maybe. So they turn up at all these functions and they have a great time. And somebody pays them loads of money for it. It's a great career. Every industry, every business has a personality that you associate with them. And every company is exactly the same. So you know in advance that the company is friendly, or restrained, or terribly serious, or very proactive, or super hip. Have you seen their offices? They don't even have walls. They have these wooden things. They're just amazing. It's part of your personality. Let me flash on, if I may. So hopefully you've understood the difference between them. Let's look at a communication strategy. Like anything in life, SMEs are probably more challenged because you've got less time, more demand on your budget, and fewer people. So you've got to be even cleverer with how you spend your time and your money and how you communicate. You need a communication strategy. Any idiot can sit and put things out on social media all day, every day, to their heart's content, and pop things out. You've no idea what it's doing. You've no idea what it's achieving. So you need a plan. You need a brief. So what is it exactly that you're trying to achieve? Whether it's you personally who's doing it, or whether you're handing this over to as a role to somebody within the office who maybe has other roles as well. What's the brief? What are we trying to do? And how do we know, how do we evaluate success? How do we know we've got there? Publics I'm going to come back to later because it's a word peculiar to public relations, but it's who are we targeting? What's the objective? So what's the objective of communicating? What are you trying to establish? It may well be that the objective is that you're a wannabe. I want to be famous is the most obvious one, but I want to be respected by my peers. I want people to know that I have 30 years experience behind me in this business and I'm good at what I do. I want to be much more high profile than I am because my competitors are very high profile and actually their product isn't as good. Establish what it is you want. I want to be known for the charitable work that I do. I want to put a profile on our CSR. The objective of everything that we do is to make people aware of this amazing new product that we've created. Set the objective, then you can start to measure it. And everything else becomes also ran. So we also got stuff here, that's great. But if it's not what we were after. If your objective is that you're trying to target people who buy your product, obviously one of the first things you're going to look at is where do people who buy your product live? So what do they read? What do they listen to? Whereabouts are they on media? It always fascinates me that people want their product profiled in the media that they read. So if you're an Irish Times reader, you obviously want your product in the Irish Times because you read the Irish Times and people you know read the Irish Times. But perhaps the people who use your product read the Star and the Mail and the Mirror? And if they do, then the Irish Times is your vanity piece and gets you nothing. It doesn't achieve your objectives. The Mail and the Mirror achieve your objectives. So set your objectives. The implementation of the tools, this is the fun bit. So this is how do I do it? Now that I know what I'm trying to do, I know the message I'm trying to get out there, and I know who I'm trying to reach with the message. How do I do it? So you dip into the goodie bag of PR tools, and that could be exhibitions, conferences, seminars, press releases, podcasts, social media interaction, virtual events, webinars. How do you reach the people with the message that you're trying to get them to? Which tools will you use? Your budget and your timeline. Budget, it's not going to cost you a huge amount of money if you do it yourself, but you are going to have to spend money. You'll have to spend money on possibly video equipment. You may need to enhance the phone that you use to shoot video on. You may need to purchase some photographs because you haven't got a large enough stock that you've built up yourself. There has to be a budget implication. It may be the platform that you actually host your podcasts on, but you need to put some money against it. And you need to timeline it. So you need to timeline, how long am I going to devote, or is somebody going to devote to public relations every week? So is this an hour a day? Is it 4 hours a day? Is it 2 hours a week? What is it? How long have we given for it? And how do we manage it within every month, every 3 months? How do we actually check that we're meeting those buzzers, that we're actually achieving what we're hoping to achieve? How do we do that? How do we timeline it? And then how do we evaluate it? How successful have we actually been? And your evaluation comes right back to your brief. What did we start off saying we wanted to achieve? Everything else is vanity. Everything else is, I love this, but it doesn't bring me any business, or it doesn't bring me the achievement of my goal. So the evaluation, if you write a brief well at the beginning, it helps you at the end to see, did you actually achieve what you wanted to achieve? Let me flash on again if I can. Publics, because publics is a word peculiar to public relations. Personas is probably the one that you're more familiar with from a branding perspective. Publics are, if you're communicating with people, you never communicate with everyone. Nobody does. You may want to communicate with everyone. You ask most business people who's interested in your product, and 99% of them will say, oh, everyone. It's relevant to everyone. It's not. It's relevant in different degrees to different members of your public. And you need to figure out, who are you actually talking to and how do you talk to them? So if you look at your audience, we looked at a company probably 4 or 5 years ago now, maybe a bit more. They were manufacturing jewelry, very upmarket, expensive jewelry in West Cork. I met with them, I spoke to them, and I said, as an item of interest, can you actually tell me who your customer is? Can you describe your customer? And the woman said, yes, of course I can. They're double income. They drive a 4-wheel drive. They live in South County Dublin. They have a house in West Cork. They usually have 2 quite small children. They're cash rich. They're time poor. They buy on indulgence. They buy on a whim. So my front mirror, the front window of my shop, is terribly important. She knew exactly who she was targeting, which meant that all I needed to do was figure out, what do that married couple with 2 young children who drive a 4-wheel and live in South County Dublin, what else do they do? What do they read? What do they listen to? So that she can target messages to them through that. The age group makes a big difference, particularly if you're sending messages about product, and particularly if your product is expensive. Each age group will react differently. As a general rule, a more expensive product is a much slower sell because people need to be more convinced if they have lower income. If they have higher income, they may buy it much faster. They need less time. So you're targeting your audience. What's their location? So do they travel? Can you catch them? Are they commuter belt people? Can you catch them on the commute? Or are you better off catching them when they're actually sitting at the weekend on a Sunday? You need to understand their lifestyle. High or low disposable income, I mentioned. Travel modes, can you reach them by putting advertising on the dart? Can you put advertising on buses? How do they travel? What are they likely to see? Will they look at the success of posters or bus shelters, or how controversial advertising in bus shelters can be? How do you actually reach them? What do they see? There was a very controversial ad many, many years ago, must be 20 years ago or more. It was budget travel, and they had an ad which had a good-looking woman running into the sea. I don't know if you remember, it was on bus shelters, and she literally had a tiny little bikini bottom on her, no top. You couldn't see anything. You were looking at her from the back. And there was uproar about this ad. in bus shelters and that it was absolutely awful and it shouldn't be around. And I spoke to a friend of mine about it and said to her, I really don't get it. I don't know what the problem is. And she said, you don't use buses, do you? And I said, no, I drive. And she said, well, I travel on buses. And I feel very uncomfortable at 11 o'clock at night, standing in a bus shelter with some man beside me who looks a bit odd. And he's looking at this young one running into the beach half naked, and I'm waiting for a bus to arrive. And the impact on her was really, really negative. It made her very uncomfortable. Budget Travel, by the way, were very, very clever. They responded to it very well. Really good PR people, really sharp. They responded to it by putting a big sticker across the girl's backside saying, don't get left behind, because the promotion was for holidays. Absolutely brilliant. You're looking at people's interests and hobbies. You're looking at their lifestyles, and specifically you're looking at their media patterns. It's not your media pattern, it's theirs. Where do they live? How can you go to their favorite place on media and talk to them there? Let me flash on to the next one if I may. Branding is about three things in my humble opinion. It's about who you are, what you look like, and where you live. This is Ellen's speak, but let me explain it to you. I'll move on to the next one. Who are you? As an SME, what you're doing is telling your story. It's not about your product. It's not about this massive company that you've built. That will hopefully come later. It's about what drove you to form this business in the first place. So what's the story behind it? Was there a product that you couldn't find that drove you to create this product? Are you from the wrong side of the tracks and you just grew up poor and God damn it, you always wanted to make money? That's fine. It's a great story. So how hard do you work to make sure that you created this business to make money? Do you want to save the world? Is your ambition that it's not really about money, and money is fine and you need money to survive, but really you want to create a product that will put more oxygen into the air, save the ozone layer, save the whales, whatever it is? That's what you're looking for. That's what's driving you. Are you looking to find a cure? Are you just looking to make more money? Because very often people say, I like that person. He's so straight, isn't he? Like, what's he all about? I just like money. Ching, ching, ching. That's what drives me. What's your story? Who are you? Think about the stories that you know. Think about Bridget O'Donoghue and pennies. And you instantly think, you associate her with pennies. It's her story. She's a woman who made it in a man's world years before women started appearing in corporate boardrooms at all. Look at Anne Herity from CPL Resources. She is CPL Resources. You look at Anne Herity and you go, oh, I know who she is. I know her business. I know what they do. I know they're well run. The entire story, the entire business revolves around her. Look at Richard Branson in Virgin Media. Love him or hate him. With all of these people, you can like them or dislike them, but they are the business. And they cleverly used the business. They used themselves and their story to build the business. So now you know what the business stands for. Let me flash on again if I can. I'm going to flash on here as well. So what do you look like? I'm not going to spend much time on this because you really should be conscious of branding. You're a small business. Think Apple. All you need to see is the bite out of the apple and you know what the product is. For an SME, it's really important that you get a brand and you don't dilute it. You can't afford to dilute it. You're too small. You need people to recognize who you are every time they come onto one of your platforms, every time they see something that you've posted, every time that they get some piece of correspondence from you in the post. It must look and feel like it's you every time. Let me flash on again. What do you stand for? This has become really, really important. I was in Australia last year and I did one of these private lunches to key corporates of Ogilvy PR. And one of the women at it was running one of the biggest IT companies in Australia. And I was talking about the fact that it's become so important that companies stand for something. If you went back to my parents' time, that generation believed that they had a duty to work, to look after family, to put bread on the table. There were things that they had to do, which just kept them alive and running. I've lost visuals here, Fiona. I don't know if you have it or not. But there were things that they needed to do to keep them alive and running. They went out, they worked, they provided. On our side now, we go out and we expect to enjoy our work more, enjoy what we do. Now you talk to young people and young people will tell you, well, actually what I'm expecting is that I want to work for a company that contributes something to the world. And that's very, very different. If you're contributing, this lady in Australia actually said to me that when she had been losing a lot of people, IT people, and she tried to establish why was it that she was losing them. So she started by saying, let's review Google and see what do they pay their people. So is there a difference in how much money we pay, the terms and conditions, the holidays they get, the environment they work in? She could find no difference at all. It was freaking her out. And eventually she came to the obvious conclusion that what she should do was just ask them, why did you leave? And people said, it's because you don't stand for anything. Yes, the terms and conditions are very good, but you don't actually stand for anything. You're about making money. I want to devote my life to doing more than making money. The PR Training Academy is a female-led organization which is communications focused and is very multicultural and multiracial. And we actually live it every day of the week. I'm a member of an organization which shall remain nameless. I attended a function that we had last year sometime, and there were 6 men on the panel speaking. And afterwards I went up to the president and said to him, wow, we really got that wrong. 6 men on the panel. We need to make sure that doesn't happen again. And he said, we don't choose the panelists, somebody else chooses them for us because of the arrangement. You know, we just take what we're given. And I said, no, women are 50% of the world, and we actually need to have 50% of the panel as women. And he said, I don't think we can actually do that. And I said, fine, just so long as you know that I will stand up in the body of the room next time this happens and say, as a member, I'm appalled, and I will publicly excoriate you because this cannot continue to happen. And it stopped. We had a situation where we were involved in a sponsorship where the sponsor came back and said they had found 6 men who were interested in participating. And it was originally meant to be 3 men and 3 women. And Eileen Barry, our client relationship manager, said, these are the names we've got. And I said, yeah. I said, yeah, I know, they're all men. And I said, yeah, you need to go back and tell them to find women. And she said, well, I did raise it with them and they said they couldn't find any women. And I said, fine, go back and tell them that we are a female-led organization and we cannot sponsor something that has 6 men. We need 6 women. We'll double the sponsorship, but let's get somebody else in. Communications focused, what we sponsor is a program called Amplifying Refugee Voices. And it's about how refugees communicate. We feel passionately that people should be able to tell their own story. And if you're a refugee, your story is usually mediated through somebody else. So it's somebody like me who's white and middle class and from Western Europe somewhere who says, isn't this appalling? This is what happens to refugees. And we feel strongly that refugees should be saying, this is appalling, this is what's happening to me. I am a refugee, here is my story. And multicultural and multiracial. And funny enough, somebody said to me a while back that it's a very conscious decision we have taken to be multicultural and multiracial, that it doesn't just happen. I had assumed it just happened because I look for the best people to do the job. And it doesn't matter, our team, as you can see, is very multicultural, very multiracial, but it's actually a decision that you make. And nowadays, if you're an SME, and you're particularly if you're operating in Ireland, your market is not Ireland, it's far too small. So you're dealing in a multiracial, multicultural environment. You are in Ireland anyway, but that becomes exploded when you move outside of Ireland. So it's something you need to be very, very conscious of. Let me move on if I can. What do you stand for? And give you some examples. Gucci. Gucci, let me read this to you. Gucci has created a world open and free, a Gucci global community. Really? Was anybody aware of that? Because I wasn't. I didn't think that's what Gucci were about. I thought Gucci were about high quality, high end fashion garments. They have not created a world open and free and a Gucci global community. I don't even know what that means. But to actually start promoting, we are all in this together. Now, they also gave $2 million euros, I can't remember which, $1 million to Italy, where most of their manufacturing is, and $1 million to World Health Organization or one of those. I can't remember. But this campaign just resonated as, no, wrong. This is not what you do. This is not Gucci. Let me flash on, if I may, and just use Ford as an example. Ford decided that they have this factory, people aren't buying cars, they're all worried about COVID. The last thing you're thinking of doing is changing your car. But we have a factory, we have people, we have a facility. Why the heck don't we actually do something? So they started manufacturing masks and PPE equipment. And they actually, I think, were much more sincere in how they did it. They said, look, we have this resource, we can use it. How does the world need help? We can afford to sponsor it. Let's sponsor help. And the help that they produced was PPE equipment, and fair play to them. Now, if you look at Ben and Jerry's, Ben and Jerry is in your face. Look at this. We must dismantle white supremacy. Silence is not an option. You can't miss where they're coming from in this one. They are not sitting on the fence. They're very clear. To be fair to Ben and Jerry, they have a whole section on their website. You can actually see it there called values. And their values are divided into 3 different areas. One is about product. One is about actually making money. And the third is about social values. So we make the best product that we can. We must run a good business and make money so that everybody stays employed. And we want to give something back to society. And they resonate as absolutely true. They also remind me, as I look at it, that for every decision you take about where you stand, you will alienate somebody. So you'll win people who say, of course white supremacy is wrong and Black Lives Matter. Everybody knows that. But you will also alienate the people who say, I'm a white supremacist. No, I'm sorry, I'm not eating Ben and Jerry's. That's fine. Ben and Jerry's call is, do you know what? Take your business somewhere else. We're perfectly happy. We know what we stand for. We know who we are. Let me show you the next piece, which is Ryanair. And Ryanair are, unless you've been living on planet Mars, you know that Ryanair have been pushing very hard with the government and saying planes should be back in the air. We're letting people go. We need to get people flying again. They can wear masks. Hello, they're adults. They can cope for themselves. And Ryanair says, you know, bring a passport with you. Make sure that you're not running a fever and put a mask on when you're on our planes. And I like them for it. I think they're true to who Ryanair is. If Ryanair started saying, we're very worried about people flying on our planes and we want you to be as safe as you can, you'd sit there and go, what's wrong with these people? Ryanair was never like that. Ryanair is the airline that says, you want us to put you up in a hotel because you missed your flight? Get over it. Pay for your own hotel. You can fly for sixpence halfpenny on Ryanair. That's who we are. And I think they're very consistent and they're very clear, and I applaud them for it, I must admit. Let me flash on again, if I may, and show you 2 videos. And these 2 videos are how 2 phone companies dealt with messaging that is not about sales. We're all in COVID, we're all stressed, or we were up to a week ago. It seems we're different this week, but that's a different story. Let's have a look at how these 2 companies handled it. I've got no sound on that, but I'm sure you have seen that video in the past, and it's Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. It's a marvelous piece. And it's all about, here are all these children. Children are great for getting interaction from people. So here are all these children. They're all singing their songs, sharing with each other. And it's about, we would like to share with you. We know you need to communicate with people, to reach out more, that you are in a lockdown environment. We're making it easier for you to communicate. No sales message, just pure communications. It's a super video. I'm sure it cost a fortune to make it. Beautifully done, but very clever as an ad. See you same time tomorrow. So clever. Let's see if we have any better luck with the audio on the second video. And I'm sure you've seen this advertisement as well. I'm assuming if I can't hear it, you can't hear it. It's the child talking about the monster is back, the big green monster under his bed. And as the grandfather looks under the bed, it takes a while before you realize that this is all happening at a distance. And it's about 3 saying you need to keep in touch with people. So we've given you as much data as you want for the rest of your lives. We're happy to make that available to you. Very, very smart. Their advertising, and the advertising is... We got it. We had some sound trying to kick in there, Fiona.
Yes, sorry about that, Ellen. Would you like me to play one of them again?
Not at all. We'll move on to the next 2 and see if we've any better luck.
Okay.
We keep fingers crossed. I just love this technology. This is why Fiona's looking after it, because technology just melts my head every time. So those 2 ads, very clever, because they just said, we're here for you. They didn't sell at all. The next 2 that I want to show you are from Aldi and Lidl. And these are sort of somewhere in the middle. They're not quite selling to you, but they're not selling to you either. Let's see if we've any better luck with these. The first is Aldi, and it's about safety.
At Aldi, your safety and that of our staff is our #1 priority. which means regular cleaning of every store. Till screens. Priority shopping between 11 and 1 for those who need it. And help us by using contactless payments and adhering to the social distancing clearly marked inside and outside our stores. Apart, but never closer. Aldi.
Super strapline. Let's look at Lidl now if we can, since we're on a roll.
The current situation in Ireland is challenging for us all. So at Lidl, we want to reassure you of our confidence in our wonderful suppliers who are keeping our deliveries coming, and our incredible staff who are keeping our stores stocked for you. All Lidl stores across Ireland remain open, so please remember, look after yourselves and we'll look after the shelves.
So Lidl and Aldi are definitely selling to you, but they're not selling in your face, selling the way they normally would, that these are our promotions, this is what we're doing. They're saying our stores are open, we have fresh food in every day, we'd like you to respect our staff and we respect you and we're keeping a social distance, but it's halfway there to a sales message. The next one from the independent group is very much a sales message. So let me flash on to the next slide if I can, and look at this, real stories worth paying for. That's an ad, if ever you saw it. But it's an ad that is very conscious of COVID, and actually it reflects all of the statistics that people are, they're worried about where do they get their information from and how much information is actually reliable. Who can I believe? And there has been a return to the more traditional media. So a media where journalists are paid to produce copy and where you pay for access to that copy. So the Independent, the Times, any of the traditional offline, which are also online media, have seen a surge. I'm not sure that it will continue. Once we come out of COVID, I think when the information source becomes less important, when the information is seen as not as high ranking, not as life threatening as COVID, I think it may swing back the other way, but possibly not. And let me just finally look at communications channels. Communications channels, I mentioned to you earlier, it's about going where your people are. So if you don't want to wander around a desert looking for an elephant. You want to sit at a watering hole and wait for the elephant to come in. And you're trying to find out with your clients, what's their watering hole? Where do they come to? Some will be on Facebook, some on LinkedIn, some on YouTube. It's not about what you like, it's about what they like. Much easier to find them where they already are. Just as I see TikTok, I have to share a story with you. A wonderful man, a presentation I gave about 4 or 5 months ago before we went into lockdown. And a man who was a member of the Indian community said to me that he had an issue. He's in financial services and he has quite a serious persona as a finance person, which you would expect. But on TikTok, he's very wacky and he's very Indian. And it's a separate persona. It's him personally. It's not his business. And he found that he had got 2 or 3 pieces of business through his TikTok posts. And he wondered if he should integrate TikTok with his business platform. And my feeling was, don't do it. Not if you want to have a business. Definitely not. What was happening was that people were either looking at him as a financial person, and I would expect my finance person to be quite serious, and saying, that's fine, he's well qualified, he knows what he's at, I like his other clients, he can represent me. And if they had young children, or they were members of the Indian community, or they were involved in whatever it was he was doing on TikTok, and they were following him, they thought, that guy is wacky, I really like him, but it was unconnected. It was part of his personality. He didn't deny it. He said, this is who I am, but this is also who I am. And different people found him on different communications channels because they came into it with a different expectation. So go to the communications channels that your key customers are going to. Let me flash on, if I can, to try and sum up. I think what public relations is about, in a less wordy definition than we started with, is it's about communicating your story. It's telling who you are and what you stand for. And you're telling a specific target audience. You may tell 8 different audiences, but you target each of them individually. You're back to the woman in West Cork. She probably sells in Cork City as well, but that's a different market that she sells to. So a specific target audience in a way that resonates with them. Speak their language, find them where they live, talk to them in their own environment on a media channel of their choice. Quite simple, really, once you adopt the bow and arrow approach and not the splurge gun. let me leave you with two resources. There are probably three ways that you can handle public relations for your own SME. The one thing that I didn't mention is in terms of communications, it's moving very fast. So if you look at the speed at which something becomes viral, it's quite terrifying. If you look at somebody putting up a post or a complaint about your business, within a half an hour they're saying, hello, I complained, is there anybody out there? Can somebody give me an answer? So the more comfortable you are with who you are, the easier it becomes to deal with those issues quickly. But you've three options effectively. The first is to retain a PR consultancy. And for most SMEs, it's a super aspiration, but it's very expensive. And it doesn't show a good return on investment. And I'm a fan of PR consultancies, especially in crisis. If you find yourself in one, just pay the money and get a good consultancy. But for general communications, I think you probably will find it too expensive until you become much larger. You can read the book, and strangely enough, I'm recommending my own book. Isn't that extraordinary? But my own book, Public Relations, A Practical Approach, Macmillan Higher Education published it last year. It really is a practical way to handle each of the different tools of public relations and get a handle on it. And the final one that I think is probably most useful is the PR Training Academy. And the PR Training Academy, prtrainingonline.com, is effectively a series of these bite-sized courses. So you go in and say, I need to shoot a video. How the hell do I do it? And this will tell you in 3 hours max, how do you do it? Or I need to figure out how the heck do I respond to that and write a feature article. It will tell you in 3 hours how to do it. I think if you're going to jump up and down, and the rule in PR always is that if you become public, you're the one who put your hand up and said, my business is brilliant, or I'm a fantastic business leader, or I'm a highly skilled whatever. You put your hand up. You said, look at me. I want the focus on me. And once you do that, you can't go back. You are now public. Your business is now public. You are in the communications business, whether you like it or not. And the only advice I would give you is make sure you know what you're doing when you're in there, because you may do nothing wrong. But if the perception is that you've done something wrong, that can actually kill you. That's a terribly negative note to leave on, isn't it? I'm sorry, I'll leave you on a very positive note, that having been 30 years in public relations, I really do believe it's the only game in town. But then I would say that, wouldn't it? I'm very happy to take any questions you might have. Thank you for listening to me.
Hi, Ellen, that was wonderful. So incredibly useful. I'm sure everybody has got lots of points from that they can take away. So if anybody would like to get their questions in to us, please do send them in to the Q&A bar at the bottom. We've got one in already. How much budget should be invested in PR from an SME in the early to mid stages of growth?
As little as possible. So if you're early to mid stage, you're trying to figure out what does the communications bring you, and you're trying to figure out as a percentage of what communications may actually bring, whether that's status or business, how much should you spend? I would think if you could allocate somewhere around 500 to 1,000 a month, you have a really, really good budget. If you have anything under that, you just need to be clever. So you need to look at, I need to buy some photographs, but how many photographs can I use which are copyright free? So you just need to be clever with the budget. If you fix it, no matter how small or how large it is, if you fix it at 200 a month, I guarantee you, if you're trying to do 2 reach outs in a month, you will find a way that that 200 will deliver you whatever it is you need so that you can communicate twice a month.
Okay, great. Question in here from our member in London, Jerry Keeney. Hi, Jerry. Great to have you with us. Branded products. Which products do you suggest to give to leave an impression after a presentation? A pen, a phone charger, personalized diary, or any other? And what is the most favorite branded product you have received?
Oh, this is back to your audience, Jerry. You cannot take one size fits all. You really can't. I mean, if you look at a young audience and you give them a pen, they'll go groovy and put it somewhere because young people don't use pens. It's not part of what they do. If you give it to an older person, they'll say that's beautifully crafted. Oh, that's lovely, and I'll enjoy signing things with that. If you give flowers, I gave a bouquet of flowers to a man at one stage, and it was really interesting because everybody said, you can't give flowers to a man. And he said, I'll bring them home to my wife. And then afterwards said, aren't they absolutely gorgeous? And I thought, well, what the heck? He survived it. I think it depends on who your audience is and what you're giving them. It's a very difficult one because you don't want to give somebody a present that looks like you're putting them into a particular category. So this is a present for women or men or young people or older people. And you don't want to give a present that is so expensive that it looks like you're trying to buy me. And you don't want to give me something so cheap that I think, wow, he went all the way across the road and spent 5 pence halfpenny on that for me. I should be so impressed. The long answer to a short question is there is no one size fits all. You literally have to target your audience carefully and choose something that resonates with them.
Okay, great. And that's Jerry Keeney from Cara Stationery. So if anybody needs any pens or any kind of stationery.
Sorry, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
She didn't say you were from a stationery company, but it does impact.
Pens are always useful, Jerry, and you make very nice ones. Keep your questions coming in, guys. So next question, what is the best way to form a relationship with a journalist in your niche?
Why are you forming the relationship with the journalist? Presumably so that at some stage they will cover something that you're doing. If you're trying to form a relationship with them, which is the right way to begin, then you're trying to form a relationship. So it's literally becoming friends. It's not looking for something. So it's contacting. I'm a great believer that you contact a journalist and say, this is who I am. This is my business. I operate in your area, and your area might be you write for a local newspaper, or it might be that you are the marketing expert and I'm in marketing. I just want to let you know who we are and what we do. Nothing else, and I'll keep you in touch. And if it's okay with you, I'll keep in touch once every 2 or 3 months. You'll find it very difficult to get a journalist. Years ago, you could get a journalist to go for coffee with you. It's very difficult to get them to do it now. But you should connect with them on Twitter. You should know what they're doing. You should connect with them on LinkedIn. And you should literally send them, not for publicity, you should send them just an update on, by the way, thought you might like to know, this is what we're doing now. And maybe once every 6 months, send them a press release, and don't hound them to find out why they didn't cover it. Just send them the press release. If they don't use it, they don't use it. They won't mind. It will build a relationship, and they'll get used to the fact that you're not always looking for something, and you do have an expertise in your area. So you can also offer that actually, if you ever need somebody to comment on my area, I'm happy to do it. Give me a quick call. I'll give you a quick quote, and that's equally as good.
Very good. Question from Stephen Lynch. Do you prefer working on PR with organizations or individuals, and why?
I love both. I'm just a PR junkie, basically. The organizations are always fun because you're always looking at the dynamic of the organization. So whether it's commercial or it's charity, it's a totally different dynamic. And you're brought in for different reasons. With individuals, you're mostly looking at either celebrities or, in my case, politicians. Who believe they're celebrities as well, and in politicians, it's a different kind of advice because you're advising on the impact of what they're doing, and they may not have a choice on what they do, but you're advising on the impact and how you actually tell that story across media. You would do the same with organizations, but it's generally in a much wider kind of scope than it would be for individuals. But each are interesting. Individuals, the difficulty with an individual is that if they don't take your advice, and you're associated with them, then you're left saying, honest to God, I didn't tell him to do that. That's not a stupid thing to do. And you can't do that because you can't let the client down. So the individual, really your relationship with the individual is as good as how well they respect you. It's like a solicitor giving you advice. Why have a solicitor give you advice and not take it? Choose the right solicitor, you'll get the right advice and you'll take it. And with an organization, it's just generally more complex because you get involved in more areas.
Okay, next question from Barry Prost from Yala.ie, a recruitment outsourcing business for SMEs who aren't engaged in any PR right now. What would be the one thing they could start doing straight away at minimal cost?
You are involved in PR. PR is communications, and by the very fact that you're on this webinar asking a question, you're communicating. What you haven't got is a structured PR. If you're in recruitment, I would look at where are people recruiting from. So I would very carefully target what media are covering recruitment and what can you offer them? What do you know that they don't know? So what's happening in recruitment, besides the fact that people have been furloughed and there was this fall off a cliff? What's happening now? So I know from our industry, I can tell you that people are upskilling much more. They're training much more. People are changing their lives and saying, I'm not doing this job anymore. I want something completely different. I need a new skill set for whatever the future will hold. What nuggets do you know from your industry that other people don't have access to? And how can you actually promote those nuggets and say, by the way, here's something you might not otherwise know? And target people, target the journalists who write about recruitment because they're the people I'll read about if I'm looking to recruit.
Okay, great. Question in here, what was the most effective campaign you've ever ran in terms of return on investment for a client?
Oh, that's a nearly impossible one, because each client I would like to think we delivered a return on investment. In terms of exciting campaigns, probably, I don't know, it's a toss-up. I loved working on a presidential campaign. I thought that was super exciting. I worked for a long time with Enterprise Ireland, Irish Energy Centre, when they were just getting going, and that was very exciting because that was actually establishing a semi-state, a brand. That was very good fun. And probably the third one was Kerrygold Dublin Horse Show, when it was Kerrygold Dublin Horse Show, because it was so new and they had just taken over the sponsorship, and it was, how do we make everybody say Kerrygold when they say Dublin Horse Show? So 3, sorry, not 1, but very different returns on investment as well, but each time a quantifiable return.
Very good. Another question here, what process should you adopt in order to figure out your brand voice?
I would say, I don't know how large the business is, but I would start by looking at what resonates with the people who work with you. So what's your collective voice? Because everybody has to believe in it, whatever it is. It can't be top down. It must be mutual buy-in. So what would you take a position on? What do you believe should be your brand voice? What does everybody else believe? Open the discussion. You'd be amazed at what people come out with. And the only thing is you need to decide on one thing that you stand for and leave everything else to the side. Because really you can only do one thing really, really well. And if your brand voice, if you've decided that you're going to adopt a voice on any issue, then you have to be strong enough to say on other issues, maybe we're not as good as we could be, but on this one, you can't touch us. We're really good. We own it.
Okay. Question from Conal Kennedy. What advice does Ellen have for a pure practitioner at this time when SME budgets and resources are cut?
SMEs are going to be very difficult to work with for the foreseeable future, I would think, because they don't have budgets. Where an awful lot of budget seems to be going at the moment is in internal. So companies that had internal PR and didn't use external consultancies for their internal work now find that they need external consultants because they're actually communicating with their employees across open social media platforms, because employees are doing what everybody else is doing. They're looking at Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and seeing who's saying what about our business, our industry, where we're going. So I would think I would slightly pivot and look at how the services you provide to SMEs could be adapted to be sold into larger companies specifically to deal with their internal people, their staff.
Okay, now one on personal branding. Any tips on branding yourself as an individual to gain employment in a different sector?
Oh, this is a really good one. I wish you had about 4 hours for this. If you're looking at your individual branding for yourself, then you need to look at all of the platforms that you are on. I consult on this, and I spoke with a colleague a while back and said to him, so you've sent me in your CV, this is what you're looking for, this is what you want to do. And I went onto your LinkedIn profile and there's no reference to it at all. You don't have nothing, absolutely nothing about it. I think you need to look at your social media platforms. You need to look at how they reflect you, because that's where everybody goes first. You look at LinkedIn to see who is this person. And if you're looking to pivot and change, I think you need to do it like a pincer movement. It's like changing a business. If you want to change the direction of a business, you plan it out and say, in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time, in a year's time, I will have. And I think you need exactly the same. And if you have exactly the same with you as a personal brand, then even from an interview point of view, you're saying, I'm not there yet, but I'm midway through a course on whatever. I am changing. That's an area I've always had an interest in, and make it stand up. And I would look at the social media platforms and start to connect with people who can be useful to you in the new career that you're aiming for, and look for their input. Ask, will they help? LinkedIn is a great platform for meeting people on and then saying, you know, I hardly know you, we've only just connected, but is there any chance you could advise me on? I do it to semi-strangers all the time. I love LinkedIn as a platform. I think they're real people, and I think you'll find a lot of help there. But plan it like a pincer movement.
Okay, great. So that question was from Peter Bracken. Another question here, how important are emotions in getting your message to resonate or connect with potential clients?
Emotions, if you look at the very best feature articles that you read, they don't tell you how to feel, you feel it. So they don't tell you should be annoyed, you're just furious when you're finished reading. They don't tell you that you should be crying, you're wiping your eyes saying, I think I got something in my eye earlier. Emotion is very important, and connecting with the emotion of people, it depends on your product, but a lot of products are bought because there is an emotional connection. I buy it there are a number of different products I can buy. What's my emotional connection to your product or to you as an individual? So the most important emotion for me, it will be happiness. I know I had this debate with somebody a while back. It was a group who were returning to work people, and they had asked, did I look for photographs on their CVs? And I said, yes, always. And a woman said, that means you're biased then. And I said, yes, I am, but what bias do you think I have? And she said, you're biased against employing older people. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm biased against employing grumpy people. And I've had people send me in CVs where they were wearing sunglasses, for God's sake. I couldn't see what they looked like. They were so cool for school. I didn't want to work with them. So my bias is, my emotion would be happiness. Because I reckon, and if I'm thinking interviewing rather than buying brand, but if you have come in for an interview, I know already that you can do the job. Now I want to know, can you fit? And you'll fit if you have generally a happy disposition, if you like what you do. So from a brand point of view, I think if you could make me feel that this brand brings me any kind of happiness, and happiness could be, it's across a broad range, it's not happy clappy, but if it makes me feel happy and makes my job a little bit easier, then that's the emotion that would sell it to me.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. If you have any more questions, just quickly send them in. We'll try and squeeze them in. Another question here from Jennifer Corcoran. Says, thank you very much. Great webinar, Ellen. She's dialing in from Devon, and she'd love to reach more SMEs in Ireland, and she wonders if you have any tips as to where to begin. So she is a LinkedIn trainer / sole trader, originally from Dublin.
Actually, you can find them all on LinkedIn. I don't know, it's not my market. SMEs aren't my market. And it's a long time since I actually worked with anybody who was in the SME sector. I don't know where they go to. I would look at where they used to go. So if SMEs used to participate in all of these different events, which were conferences for SMEs, the likes of the Small Firms Association, ISME, any of those groups, that they are watering holes for SMEs. That's where they go. So I would think start by getting involved there, because that's the pool that you're swimming in, or you should be swimming in.
Okay, great. I think that's all we have time for, unfortunately. This is being recorded, so if anybody would like to get the recording, just let me know and we can share that with you. Thank you so much to everybody for sending in your questions. Always great to have the interaction. Ellen, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. And as always, just incredibly useful content, and I'll definitely be rewatching this again for myself.
Well, I was literally going to say to you, if anybody had a question that they think of afterwards that they haven't thought of, send it on to you or send it on to me, and I'll be happy to answer it for you.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody would like to do that, please do send me on the email and I'll pass it on to Ellen. Ellen, thanks again, really do appreciate it, and we'll definitely have to have you back again soon, because it's been a very popular event and a great list of attendees today for it.
Thanks for having me. Thoroughly enjoyed.
Take care. Bye everyone.
All the best. Bye-bye.